Welcome to the Model Rail Replacement Podcast, helping you get to your onward journey. A friendly service that helps you get from A to B, or probably nowhere at all.
Hello and welcome to episode 9 of the Model Rail Replacement Podcast, or as we sometimes call it when we remember to, MERP. I am your host, James, and with me is producer and co-host
Sam. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Sam. How are you?
I'm really, really good. We've been behind the scenes. You and I have been doing a lot of stuff around the podcast. I like to think we're both really enjoying it, and we've got a lot of fun things planned for people in the upcoming week. So we've been quite busy. We're doing a lot of podcast stuff. So
yes, indeed. There's some possibly good potential for some of the conversations we've had this week. So fingers crossed for those sort of things. But I don't think there's anything to jinx us yet. But yeah, we have been very busy. We've been recording numerous amounts of podcasts this week, so much so that I've barely got anything done on my layout. But I have been progressing modelling wise a little bit. I sort of, as I mentioned the other week, I had a bit of a burnout and I sort of couldn't get very far. And I think, partly it was because I was having trouble with the points in the fiddle yard and it's trying to decide how I was going to work it onto the scenic section. But I've made a decision in regards to the points. I think I'm just going to bite the bullet and invest in something a little better than the seat point motors, just so I've got that more stable fiddle yard that I can rely on. And so with that in mind, I've now progressed onto the main lines, and there is at least one curve now down on the track for the main line, so trains can get out of the fiddle yard and onto the scenic section by about, I'd say, 50 centimeters. But it's progress.
that is good progress, though.
Yeah, I'm pleased, and it's giving me my mojo back a bit. Also, I sort of made a purchase this week that gave me a bit of extra mojo. Yeah, I've had that, and yeah, I'm all live and kicking again for Modelling World. Your side, have you been doing anything modelling wise?
I've also taken a step back from the layout. I'm now, so the point motors that I'm choosing to use, they're quite difficult to get hold of at the moment, but they are completely worth it. So Model Shop in Portsmouth I'm waiting for them to order me some more. So I can't do any of the point motors or anything like that, like I have been. I'm slowly packing away a lot of the stuff that I own. So I'm trying to keep hobby stuff out so that I can work on stuff, but nothing truly amazing. I'm still working on a 4VEP kit for Martin of Folly Lane. I'm slowly working on my Intercity Class 73 because that's my own personal piece. It sits at the back, and that is when I have a 5 minute sort of thing, I can work on that. Bridge section is currently back up in the loft. More and more boxes are appearing in our dining room. So rather than have the layout in an area where it could get damaged whilst we're putting boxes and stuff in there, I thought I'd put it back up in the loft, and it's out of the way, but it's ready to go when I need it. I think the next thing I'm going to be doing over the next few weeks is I'm going to be working on my switches for my control module for my points, and because they will be completely separate from the actual layout, they'll be, like I said in the previous episode, they'll be done via a connector on a D sub unit. It means that I can work on it, plug it in when I need to, then unplug it again, and then do bits and bobs like that. So I need to obtain a 40 centimeter by 20 centimeter piece of clear plastic to work on the actual diagram, and then I'll be putting the switches in, the LEDs and stuff like that, and getting that all up and running. So I'm very excited to get that done. So in a roundabout way, I've not been up to a lot, but I've talked a lot about nothing.
That's fair enough. It does sound cool though. You've got plans ahead for what you're going to do. Yeah, that's very cool. Yeah, as I say, I'm very, very pleased this week because I've managed to get hold of a set of the Trans Pennine Express Mark V coaches at a very reasonable price, and that was thanks to John at Colwich Junction, which I just happened to go onto Instagram at the very right moment that he put his post up, and it was like, anyone want to buy these? I was like, yes, I do. So, yeah, they've arrived. And the only issue I've had with them is that they've got a back-to-back problem, which having a look online, a lot of these Mark V's had a back-to-back problem. So I've just got to go along the coaches and just push the wheels back to the correct width, so they'll stop derailing on points. But otherwise, they're absolutely stunning models. And I can see why they were so popular and why people wanted them. So, yeah, I believe Scale have plans to produce some more in the future, and I think they'll sell just as well as the first round. Yeah,
It's funny that you mentioned that. So Akira Scale recently did their takeover of Rails of Sheffield, and I watched the video of it this morning actually. And effectively in the video they talk about their Mark Fives, both the Caledonian sleeper sets and the Transpennine stuff. And they said, comment on this video and let us know if you want us to do another run. And I'm very much after a set of the Caledonian sleeper coaches. It's completely out of era for me, but having been on the Caledonian sleeper, seeing it in person, and they look absolutely gorgeous. I do want a set of 4. I missed out on that first run of it, so I immediately commented and said, please do another run of the Caledonian sleeper stuff, both the 92 and the rake of coaches. So if you are interested in seeing more of those coaches and you're listening and you did miss out, go over to the Rails of Sheffield YouTube page, look for the Akira Scale takeover video, and on that video comment saying that you would like to see another run of the coaches, if that is something that you're after, because they've specifically said comment below, and if we get enough people we will do another run.
That's very cool. Yeah, they do like to do things like that, because the other one was they've a couple of weeks ago, I think they did some TT figures of themselves, like so you can buy I think it's like a pack of 3 or 4 of them. They're all measured, like in poses, like they're measuring up a train.
Yeah.
And they've done it in the various gauges, and they released them in TT. And they said, we thought we wouldn't go there, but we might go there. So if these TT figures sell well, we might just look at TT. So you never know. Maybe if any TT modelers out there that want to see these coaches, maybe you can just approach them and say, I want to see these Mark Fives, but I want to see them in a slightly smaller scale. So yeah, I do like that approach by Q Scale. But yeah, so yeah, if you want the Mark Fives, and I definitely, after owning a set now, recommend them. Get onto that YouTube channel and put your comments in. Well, that's our own modelling news. Modelling world news. Not a lot this week, but there is a few things out and about. What have you got to tell us, Sam? Anything you know?
So something that popped up that not usually my kind of thing, but I saw it, and with a 3-year-old who loves an ice cream and a nice lolly, and especially at the moment a witch's hat, Dapol have announced some 12-ton ventilated vans at a very, very reasonable price. This comes via Rails of Sheffield, and they're doing a rocket ice lolly, a fab ice lolly, and a feast ice cream feast. I can't remember, but either way, they're doing a feast, a fab, and a rocket lolly vans, and they're coming in unweathered at £11.05, which in this day and age for a piece of rolling stock seems insane, because you could effectively, for just a few pounds more, purchase all 3 of them for the cost of some of the ready-to-run straight-up normal wagons.
That is a very reasonable price, isn't it? That's you can't knock Dapol for that sort of thing. Yeah, like you just say, you can get 3 of them for the price of 1 wagon from another manufacturer. And okay, I think there probably are fictional liveries. I doubt these ones existed, but they do look lovely. And if you're happy to run these wagons, I think they look absolutely, well, excuse the pun, but they will look fab. But yeah, I quite like them. So yeah, they're quite cool. Yeah, and as you say, it's a good price. I think there's an LMS liveried one for those who want something a little bit more realistic, and that's also coming in at around £11.05 with your discount. Those look quite good. I think there's some O gauge vans coming too, with banana vans. And some new open plank wagons. So some exciting items coming from Dapol.
What about you? Is there anything that you've seen out there that you think is worth mentioning in the news this week?
Yes, there is. So as many of you should know, I am a 009 modeler. And this week, very excitingly, now in stock is the Pico, and I'll say Kato, but I think someone said it the proper way the other day. Is it Cato or something? But the 009 Festiniog Railway, the small England is back, and now the large England, which is very exciting. So the difference between these 2 locomotives is the small Englands, I think, had trouble retaining water as they did the work on the Festiniog, and eventually ended up in the shunting yards at Portmaddock Harbour. The large Englands were introduced because they could hold more water, and so they're then used on the trains to go up and down the mountains. And they look absolutely stunning. So you've got varieties such as Little Giant, and what I think is the most beautiful looking model, and I may have to get one, Welsh Pony in its Festiniog purple brown livery. They're coming in at around, with the discount being offered of, I think it's about 15% off, £153, which I think is quite reasonable for a 009 model these days. And there's other versions as well, such as Exmoor Pony in Southern Railway Green. I think this is completely fictional, but looks absolutely beautiful. So if you were doing a Linton and Barnstaple style railway, it could be quite suitable to go on that. Or of course, as many 009 modelers do, they do the modern heritage railway scene. We've got Palmerston being introduced as well for the Small England collection. I think that'll bring you up to at least 3 of those existing locos. I'm trying to think off the top of my head what the other one was, because you had Prince, Princess, Palmerston. I think there was a 4th one, but for the life of me, I can't remember its name right now. So, I'm quite excited to see them. I think they're going to look absolutely fabulous on people's layouts.
Excellent. Now, we mentioned at the end of the DAPOL stuff that there's an LMS ventilated van coming out. Now, it's interesting that we're mentioning LMS because, James, what's coming up in the main section of our episode today?
Well, we like to keep things fresh and exciting at the Model Rail Replacement podcast, and so therefore today we're going to have a bit of a debate battle. This is an idea that we've come up with, that we are going to take our top 5 choices of locomotives and pit them against each other to try and find the ultimate winner. This week we've picked the LMS, and we'll have various categories, but what I need to tell you now is that we're going to take a short break, and you're going to find out about the rules soon after.
Look at that! You see that there? The super shiny diesel loco that's coming this way. Yeah, I see it. Isn't it beautiful? So fresh, so clean, like it's straight out of the box. I mean, yeah, it's nice, but I prefer it to have a used look to it. In an ideal world, that would be nice, but I'm sure the owner doesn't have the confidence, skill or time to undertake such a job. Then why don't they just send it to Emperor's Path? Emperor's Path? Yeah. SBJ has years of experience in model railways and wargaming, the ability to meet your weathering needs, and works with you during the whole process to ensure the project is how you want it, not like it's come through a factory. Come on, that must cost a fortune. Not really. He offers different levels of weathering at really affordable prices. I've got my whole fleet weathered by him. My loco's got the full treatment, whilst my rolling stock just a dusting with the airbrush, and it looks really authentic. I might just get a quote. How do I contact him? You get him on Instagram at emperors_path, by Facebook, Emperor's Path, or emperorspathcontact@gmail.com. Emperor's Path Weathering. If it's not filthy, let's change that.
Okay, this week we are going to do something different. We're not doing an interview. We're not doing a topic discussion. We are doing a battle. Yes, that is right. Me and Sam are going to pit against each other in a battle of locomotives. This week's theme is the LMS. Now, the rules of the game are simple. You must pick 5 locomotives to various categories, and the locomotive must be represented in ready-to-run form. We will then take our locos and battle why we think our loco is the better choice. At the end of it, we should have a top 5 list of locomotives from the following categories. Round 1 will be a tank engine or shunting engine. Then we'll move on to the mixed traffic engine, followed by the freight engine, then the express engine, and the final round will be any man's choice. We can take any locomotive from that region and pit it against the other. So, Sam, are you ready to do battle?
I was born ready.
Cue battle music as we go to round 1, tank locomotives. So, Sam, you flipped a coin. You got to pick your list first, and then I had to take your list and pick mine. So we do not have duplicate locomotives. Who did you go for your tank engine?
So, tank engine. I've gone for the Ivat 2MT tank locomotive. A little bit of background info. Introduced in 1946 and designed by H.G. Ivat. It is a 262 tank engine, and around 130 were built. Only 10 were built under the LMS. The rest were built by BR up to 1952. Many were fitted with vacuum control gear to allow them to be used on push-pull services. These locos were so successful, they found their way onto the southern region. There's a little bit as to why I like this one. It is available in N gauge by Dapol and in double O gauge by Bachmann. James, what do you bring to the table?
Well, I do like the Ivet 2MT. I think it looks a very stunning locomotive, and I thought this could be quite the contender. So I had to find something that I thought would take it on very nicely. I've gone for the classic Ginty. Introduced in 1924, designed by Henry Fowler, this 060 was almost all over the London and Midland region. 420 were built in total, based on the earlier Midland Railway design of 1899, and they were versatile, used as station pilot, shunting loco, and on local traffic duties. They are also available in N gauge by Graham Farish, OO gauge by Bachmann, and O gauge by Dapol. Right then, so that's my choice of locomotive versus your choice of locomotive. Why do you think the Ivet then is better than the Ginty?
I'm going to put my hands up straight away on this one and feel that you have. I'm actually going to say, I think you've won this. I don't think you could have come forward with a more iconic engine to face off against the Ivet. Now, I love these. I always refer to them as big tank engines. Like they're just shy of becoming a tender engine, and they have the interest with all the mechanisms on the wheels and the drive gear and stuff like that. And I think they look great. They're imposing enough without having to be this ridiculously big tender engine. And the Ivet, I love it because there is one on the Midhants Railway, the Watercress line, which is my local railway. I've sat behind one of these before. They are beautiful, beautiful engines. I think I'm going to have to put my hands up, though, and feel free to still come back with an argument. I think you've won this solely based on picking one of the most iconic engines of all time.
Yeah, well, as I say, because you got to pick the list first, I had to pick something to challenge it, and I love the look of Ivet designs. Even the Flying Pig, I think, has its charm, which is the 4MT. So it's quite a challenge because they are a really lovely looking loco. But I thought, as tank engines go, if you were to start out a model railway, and we can go right back to the early days of model railways and train sets and that. The Triang Ginty was in the train set. Hornby had reproduced copies of that train set with that locomotive just for the nostalgia feeling. And so that's why I felt that the Ginty would be the top contender here for model rail replacement's next top model, I suppose we could call it. But
very different show to what I'm sure most of you are used to as well.
Yeah, so we tried to get Tara Banks to but she wasn't interested. Yeah, that's why I went for the Ginty. And I'm torn because I do like the Ivet, and I would like to say, put in the Ivet, but as it's my choice is the Ginty. I want to say, I think the Ginty is the winner here.
Yeah, I'll put my hands up. I think this is the easiest win of all. It's not to say, because I have a love of the 2MTs, the 3MTs, the 4MTs in the BR configuration of them, and I know that this was very much the initial design for it. So it's why it's definitely on my list. I think you've won this. You've picked such a good locomotive, and yeah, there's not much else to say other than you've won. So round one goes to you, I'm afraid.
Round one goes to the Ginty. Excellent stuff. We'll cue some more battle music as we move on to round two. Okay, so round two, we move on to mixed traffic locomotives. Sam, as you get to go first, what was your choice?
I chose the Fairburn tank locomotive. Bit of info. Introduced in 1945, designed by Charles Fairburn, a 264 tank engine design. 277 were built, based on the Stanier 264 tank engine and the basis for the BR standard Class 4 tank engine. It was used mostly on suburban passenger duties, but did do freight work. 41 were built at Brighton Works for the use on the southern region between 1950 and 1951. Although they didn't stay, 7 went to the northeastern region, and the remaining swapped for the BR standard tanks from the Midland region by the end of 1959. Available in N gauge by Graham Farish and available in double O by Bachmann.
Oh, that's a pretty sound choice there, I think. And I have noticed a theme with your selection of Midland locomotives. They all seem to be southern locomotives.
It's like I'm slightly cheating in every design of this already. I'm gaming the system.
But yeah, they are very smart tank engines. And I think they're sort of the third version of the large tank as it sort of evolved through the London Midland. So I think they started off with the Fowler tank, then you had this Stanier tank, and then I think this is the evolution of that, isn't it? Very nice choice. I do like the Fairburn. So this could be quite the battle. Now, as I said in the previous round, I am quite fond of Ivert's designs of locomotives, and this one I'm hoping I think I can clinch the victory in this one as well, because I've gone for the Ivert 2MT 260 tender engine, which was introduced in 1946 and designed by H.G. Ivert. It was 128 of these were built, and they just get into the LMS category because they were started by the LMS in 1946, and the build continued by Midland BR until 1951. And then I mock you for your southern influences here, but this could be where mine comes in, because 23 more were built at Swindon Works for remaining 2 years up until 1953. So we've kind of both got influences from other areas, I think. These locos were designed for light branch line duties, and they were really loved by crews by the fact that they were modern, they were fast and really economical. So they were a very popular locomotive. And as the rule states, they need to be in a ready-to-run form, and they are, because Graham Farish produced them in N gauge. And they originally came out in 00 gauge by Hornby, and then Bachmann then later did an upgraded version. Yep, that's my choice for this round. I think they're both quite good choices. It's quite tough. I don't know if I can sway you to come for the Ivor, or stick there.
So I feel like I've seen your one before. I can't think where I've seen it, but it seems really similar, a different engine that we may have seen already. So I really like the Ivert 2MT. This is also at the Watercress line. I've seen it. I think I've even cabbed it. If you're unaware what cabbed it is, it's where you manage to get a picture of you in the cab rather than just getting the number of the loco. I mean, the people at the Watercress are always great with me going, can I sit in the cab, please? It is a really nice locomotive. I do feel that the tender version of the 2MT doesn't look as refined as the tank engine 2MT. So I'm going to come at you with, let's look at the Fairburn. It's beautiful. It resembles so much one of the most glorious tank engines ever created in the form of the 4MT. Looks very similar to the 3MT, one of my all-time favorites. I think it looks so nice because it also looks like if Henry the Green engine was ever put into a tank engine form, I feel like this is the locomotive that you would see. Now, the one I have my eye on is the lined version with the British Railways writing rather than the logo on it. It's a really, really nice loco. It's got enough complexity to the wheels and the arrangement, but it does have that cuteness of a tank engine.
Yeah. I believe it was also, during its preservation life, one of them at least was painted in the Caledonian Railway blue. And you can get, I think Bachmann did its Eclector Clubs model, and it looks very nice model form that way. So yeah, I can see this way the fair, but I quite enjoy the IVAT looks, obviously, and that then was inspiration for the BR standard 2MT tender loco as well. They're very similar looking. But yeah, I think that large tank locomotive is quite nice. So yeah, I think maybe I'm going to go with you on the Fairburn on this one.
I've got a win. I'm not. I can now rest a little bit easier. I've got one victory in my pocket. As somebody who is not au fait with steam engines, I was really worrying I wouldn't be able to bring any information to this. So I'm happy. I will say the comment about the fact that this does look like one of the most famous engines that operate in the LMS style. We're not going to talk names, but the fact that it only occurred to me whilst I was looking at the picture and talking about that to you, it only occurred to me that this is effectively a Henry the Green engine without a tender, and I've actually it's put it up in my estimations because of that. So we'll talk a little bit more on that later down the line. But thank you for the victory. I shake your hand, good sir.
So it's 1-1 in our battle of LMS locomotives. We're now going to move on to round 3. Round 3 is freight engine, so it doesn't necessarily have to be the locomotive was always used for freight work, but it had to have been designed with that duty in mind. So what have you gone for?
So for this one, I've gone for the Fowler 4F freight locomotive. Now, This one is slightly different in the sense that My previous picks have been a little bit of a complexity towards the wheel arrangement, but this one not so much. So a little bit of information for you. Introduced in 1911, designed by Henry Fowler, an 060 wheel configuration. 770 were built, with a history dating back to 1911. These locos were originally built for the Midland Railway and continued to be built by the LMS. Found all over the industrial Northern Midlands and were used for goods trains and shunting. Some were built for the Somerset and Dorset and remained on there for many years. Available in N gauge by Graham Farish, 00 by Bachmann, Hornby, Dapol, and Airfix. What have you got for me, James?
Yeah, that's quite a good choice there. I'd like to mention the Somerset and Dorset because that continues the theme that you're just going for locomotives that made it to the southern region. So, but mine is also a Somerset and Dorset choice. I have gone for the absolutely gorgeous Somerset and Dorset 7F. These locomotives, I think, are so beautiful. And then the fact that we're designed for freight. But yeah, they're introduced in 1914. So there were 6 versions originally. They were the large boiler versions. And then there was a further 5 built in 1925. They were the smaller boiler versions. I think there's 2 of them left in preservation. So if you do see one, it will be the smaller boiler version. Designed by Henry Fowler, there are 280 wheel arrangement. And as I say, there was only 11 of them built. And they were built for the Somerset and Dorset with the heavily graded hills in mind and the required power to get over and above what was available from the Midland small engines, because the Midland Railway had a small engine policy, so they quite keen on the 060s, such as the 4F that you've presented to us, and they just weren't suitable to get over the steep gradients of the Mendips. So these locomotives were designed and built to handle, and they didn't have, without assistance, because Midland Railway's small engine policy also meant that they like to run double header, so they'd increase the power on the train by just adding an extra locomotive to it. But for the economy of the Somerset and Dorset, it wanted to, the locomotive to do it on its own. So they had to get over the Mendip Hills with all the coal and stone traffic, because the Somerset coalfields were all around the Somerset and Dorset lines, and they were so successful in their work that they eventually found themselves working on the passenger trains as well. During like the summer Saturday specials and that they're so famous for being photographed for in later years by the likes of Peter Ivo and that. So there's only one ready to run version available, I believe, by Bachmann. Possibly New Mills did an N-gauge one, but I'd have to double check on that one. But yeah, that's my choice, and I'm very passionate about the 7F. So you're going to have to really battle to push your 4F forward, because I like the 4F. Again, it's a Somerset and Dorset loco, and I'm very fond of the Somerset and Dorset. But yeah, I just think there's something about that 7F that makes it look absolutely stunning.
I have a picture of both of them sat next to each other on my screen, and I am struggling with this. I'm going to say whether this sways you or makes you even firmer in your belief of the 7F. The 7F looks like a locomotive that should be a GWR tender engine, but it also looks like the miniature railway from that you see. I'm trying to remember what the name of it is, but the really famous is it Ditham and High Church and Ditham or something like that. Yeah. It looks like one of those miniature railway locos has been stretched up to 00 or real life size, standard gauge. It is a beautiful locomotive, and I think what's made this decision harder is we've both picked locos that. The pictures that I found of both of them are both in that beautiful, I think you called it Prussian blue, the Somerset and Dorset livery.
Yes, it's Prussian blue, yeah. I don't think the 7Fs actually wore it. I think that may be a fictitious livery that Bachmann put on them. I'd have to double check into that. I think they always just wore the black. But yeah, it's as I say, I like the 4F, but I love a 7F. So much so, it's one of the few steam locomotives that I do own. With the whole purpose of building the heritage line is just so I have an excuse to run a 7F round. So
you may have swayed me with that. I'm going to say, here's my last counter argument on it. Your one's beautiful. We can't deny that. My one's beautiful. We can't deny that. Let's go from the fact that I can't attack you based on how stunning it is. I can try and win you over by the fact that there were only 11 of yours built. And whilst they were extremely useful for getting over the hilly area of the Somerset and Dorset Railway, there were a lot more examples of my one built. I don't know if that can sway you, but I feel like the usability of mine is greater, and the fact that there were so many of them built.
I'd go with the unique factor of mine.
I knew you were going to come back with that. Okay. whilst you are heavily invested in your one, I think that both of them are great. I will fold at this because I think it is a very difficult decision to make. And I think both of them are beautiful locomotives. I would argue I would prefer to own a Fowler 4F as a model, but I would be happy to see the 7F running around with the stock that you see fit. So hands up, I'm going to say that you win this one to avoid any arguments and the podcast stopping. I think the 7F wins.
I was just about to come into the challenge there and say that, even though they were built for the Somerset and Dorset, obviously they used to go to Derby for their overhauls and that, and then they used to end up on the local Derby passenger workings or freight workings whilst they were bedded in before they were sent back to Somerset and Dorset. So as a modeler, you could own one and not necessarily have to model the Somerset and Dorset. You could have an excuse of why it was in your area, as long as you modelled close to Derby work, you could probably get away with it. But yeah, no need for that because the 7F is the winner in the freight locomotive round. Excellent stuff. I'm very pleased with that because I wasn't going to back down the 7F, I got to be honest.
I think this was the hardest one for me to pick in terms of a category. Like it's notorious that I am very much a passenger kind of person, and steam's also not my forte. There's something about this one being such a simple wheel arrangement that I really, really like. And whilst I like the simple wheel arrangement on tender engines, it is nice. I think your one does. And I think it's possibly because I really like the you can see there's a GWR aesthetic to the 7F, and I think that's what wins it over for me.
You're always trying to upset the steam fans, aren't you? But comparing railway companies that were great rivals.
I mean, stop stealing each other's ideas, and I'll stop saying what's true.
Well, as we know, obviously, I don't think we've picked a William Stanier design yet, but obviously he was a Great Western man, and the London Midland pinched him, in which he became their chief mechanical engineer. So. We'll move on to our next round then, which will be express passenger locomotives. Okay, so we are now moving on to express passenger engines, the top of the locomotive hierarchy, I suppose you could say. Always the ones that modelers tend to go for. So this could be quite a challenging round. Now, as you're listening, I'd just like to remind you that the rules are that, whilst Sam picked first, I have to pick a locomotive that's not duplicate, but you also cannot use the same locomotive during the battle. So you have to be quite selective with your choices. So there may be something in here that might surprise you. What have you gone for, Sam?
As you said, I did get the chance to pick first. So and express passenger engines being something, especially in steam, I am not au fait with. Whilst I love passenger trains, the express ones aren't necessarily where I go to when I think steam. However, I have gone for the Stanier Jubilee class. Introduced in 1934 and designed by Sir William A. Stanier. The wheel alignment is a 460. 191 were built. Utilised all over the Midland network on express, passenger and fast freight. Their large driving wheels made them swift performers and made a particular impression out of St Pancras and the Midland Main Line. A few were rebuilt with large boilers and a double chimney. You can find it in N-Gauge in Graham Farish, 00 with Bachmann, with a rebuilt version also produced by Bachmann, but it is a split chassis version. Now, James, I'm not an LMS steam man. However, I believe that this is probably one of the more famous locomotives, so I think you're going to have to come with something pretty strong on this one.
This is it's Stanier designs. I think always quite popular with the London Midland modelers, and the Jubilee is an absolutely gorgeous locomotive. I've gone for a challenge in that it could be either way, really, because I've gone for the Royal Scot class. These were originally introduced in 1927 and were designed by Henry Fowler, and then they were later redesigned and rebuilt in 1943 to a William Stanier design. They're a 460 locomotive, the same as the Jubilee. Only 71 of these were built. However, when you look at their history of how good they are as a locomotive-wise, and if this was the battle of the locomotives in the real world, I think this could probably beat the Jubilee. But as we are doing models, it all depends on what looks nice as a model as well. So these were originally designed as a parallel boiler design. And then, as I say, William Stanier in 1943, which was also the year of his knighthood, he rebuilt them, and they came out with a high attractive effort than the GWR Castle. And I'm not certain, but I know the Midland approached Swindon Works at one point to buy castles off them or have them built, and the Great Western refused for whatever reason, and so therefore I can only assume that these rebuilt Royal Scots were the result of that. And they were immensely capable locomotives, so they were put in charge of the proper prestige express trains that usually were given to the Pacifics to work. And it wasn't uncommon to see them working on these trains, and they could do like the shorter routes as well, like Liverpool to Leeds and stuff like that. So they were very versatile, but really popular and really powerful locomotive. So I mean, yeah, as I say, if this was just a battle of the locomotives, I'd say I reckon the Royal Scot have a good chance there. So available by Graham Farish and Engage, and then they're also in OO gauge, and you can get a Bachmann version and a Hornby version. And I believe the Bachmann version is the original, and the Hornby version is the rebuilt. But yeah, it's that's my challenge there. But I think that's a tough call. I really like the look of the Royal Scot once it was rebuilt. And then again, because it's got that Stanier design in it, and maybe that's because he was a Great Western man, he was an apprentice at Swindon Works before going into the Midland, and there's probably some GWR influence in his design there. So this could be quite a tough one to call.
I think if you were going to say that it was the original version, I would hands down tell you that you're wrong. And this is me offending steam people all across the world here. However, the rebuilt version of it is a completely different kettle of fish. I think the LMS Stanier Jubilee class looks very similar to another locomotive. So much so that I wouldn't be able to tell the difference if somebody showed me a picture and asked which one it was. That's me because I'm a terrible steam person. However, I think the Royal Scot in its rebuilt version looks far more glorious than the Jubilee class.
It does, but there are the rebuilt Jubilees that you mentioned, and they are very, very similar to the Royal Scot. And this is what I sort of wish maybe Bachmann would move on to, is the fact that they like you said, they did do a split chassis version a long time ago of the rebuilt Jubilee, but I don't think they've ever upgraded the tooling for it. And I think the rebuilt Jubilee also is quite stunning, but it has got that Royal Scot look. So I don't know if I'm being swayed there by the Royal Scot making the Jubilee look nicer, or just saying that the Jubilee is a very lovely looking locomotive.
I'm going to come in with something that hopefully decides it. And I'm going to say, if we were talking the original design, it has to be the Jubilee. If we're talking the rebuilt, I think it's the Royal Scot. However, let's go with the rebuilt version, because I think.
Well, I was going to say, to make it more fair, as both got rebuilt, we can compare original to rebuilt and say Jubilee to definitely, I think, beats the Royal Scot in original. Rebuilt wise, as the Jubilee looks like the Royal Scot rebuilt, I would probably argue that maybe the Jubilee is the winner here, just because it carries the same look as the Royal Scot. But if you were going to go for my Royal Scot, then I was probably talk myself out of a victory there.
I was going to say the rebuilt Royal Scot looks the best of the two if you were just comparing visually.
Yeah,
I'm going to say that so little has changed about the rebuilt Jubilee design that means that the initial design of it was good enough, and therefore comes out as the top loco.
Yeah, that's fair enough. The Jubilee is the winner there.
I think if you were looking at the original Jubilee versus the rebuilt Royal Scot, I would have found that a lot harder. But I was tempted to say Royal Scot would be the winner, but I just keep looking at the original picture, and I think whilst the Jubilee looks beautiful in both versions, the Royal Scot, unfortunately, in my eyes, just looks terrible in the original version.
Yeah, it's not a looker, is it? That earlier design. It's yeah, we compare the rebuild. I mean, Stanier's work really does shine there, and it does make it look a really lovely loco. But yeah, as you say, not much difference between the rebuild and the original of the Jubilee. So therefore, the original of the Jubilee's got to make it the better locomotive. So yeah, Express Passenger Locomotive winner there is the Jubilee class. So we'll move on to the final round. It's 2-2. It's almost like we've set this up as a fix, but we So, final round is any man's game. But before we do that, we thought we'd just go into a little what if round. And this one would be, what locomotive would you pick that doesn't exist? So we're kind of following our interview questions, aren't we? With choose something that you'd like to own that may not exist. And so therefore we've done it with the LMS. And in this case, what locomotive have you gone for?
So this is difficult for me. Like I've said it quite a few times in this interview. I've said it quite a few times already. I'm not a Steam man. So anyone who's just coming to this for the first time, it's not something that I am au fait with. I like the Steam I like. I would never really be able to tell you who it is, what it is, or anything like that. However, this one, I found one that doesn't appear in a ready-to-run model, and I think it would look quite beautiful if it did. And this might go back to the originals of my Thomas inspiration. So apologies to anyone if I've got this wrong. But I've gone for the Barton Wright Class 25 2F, which is an 060 tender engine. The thing that I love about this the most is the fact that it is a tender engine that has been given the grade of 2F for its classification under BR, which would lead me to believe, and then correct me if I'm wrong, that this is actually quite a weak engine.
Yes, yeah. 2F get my words out. The 2F classification, I think, is actually less than the Ginty, which I think was a 3F. So yeah, you've got a tender engine there that is less powerful than a tank engine. It's probably an Edward. If we're talking about Thomas of the train world. But yeah, this is for people listening trying to picture what this locomotive is. It's the Lancashire and Yorkshire Class 25. Is that right?
Yes. And actually, there is a Lancashire and Yorkshire preserved version of it available, and I resemble it to the Scottish twins of Donald and Douglas from Thomas days. A lot of my inspiration towards steam is all based around Thomas era stuff, and it is a beautiful looking locomotive. I don't have a lot of information about it. Obviously, the more something gets put into a model form, the more information tends to be available for it. But it is definitely an earlier breed of locomotive. I do think it's nice. It would be nice if I saw it in ready to run model form. Would I buy it? I don't know, but that's probably because the LMS list of locomotives is quite difficult for what's not available in ready to run form. There's a lot of the greatest ones that they have already available in ready to run form.
What surprised me about your choice there is I think that's a locomotive that went nowhere near the southern region as well. So,
well, I've gone for the complete other end and to where my family are from instead.
top of the country. That's it. But cool. Yeah, I think that's a lovely choice for a future model. So I had a little think about it, and the one I went for is not actually steam. I've gone for a diesel. In this case, a diesel rail car. So this is the LMS free car articulated diesel rail car, and I think I first became aware of this when I bought those Middleton Press books. You know, the like Somewhere to Somewhere. In this case, it was the Oxford to Bletchley, and then there's a Cambridge to Bletchley one off the top of my head. And you obviously put them together, and it's Oxford to Cambridge, and it's the entire route between there. And yeah, there was a photo of this on the cover of one of those books. And I was like, what is that? And then you go in there and you read about it. So this was the only one built, I believe. It was introduced in 1937, and it's a very, very stylish sort of Art Deco design. It looks absolutely gorgeous. And it was used on the Oxford to Cambridge route. It was based in the depot at Bedford, which meant that later on, after it's sort of done its trial running Oxford to Cambridge line, it moved on to St Pancras to Nottingham, and was used on that route as well. And it was kept in service up until 1939, and then unfortunately the outbreak of the war, it got put into storage, and then it never came out again until it was modified by BR, and they took the centre coach away and they sort of beat up the ends a little bit and turned it into an overhead maintenance vehicle, I think, for the electrification of the West Coast Main Line. So for model wise, yeah, I think you can have this really stunning LMS model that, you know, with the popularity of these one-offs that we see more and more of, I think it'd be quite a nice model to see. But then, you know, for those that want to model the correct era, there is a possibility of, you know, I don't know how much tooling you'd have to change, but you could make a model of it in its BR days. So yeah, that's the one I've gone for a choice of loco I'd like to see made.
This will come as no shock to you that first of all, I didn't know this existed until you mentioned it, had a quick Google. Hands up, you win this. You absolutely win this. And I don't think anyone's going to be surprised about this, the fact that I've let a diesel come in and sway me straight away.
Some may say it's
I mean, it's genius. Now, We haven't confirmed this, but obviously this is a bonus round and doesn't count towards the final tally, because otherwise it makes it very difficult if James wins this one and I win the next one. And James can tell me no, and I can cut this particular section out of the episode if need be. I feel my pit, there are quite a lot of locos that resemble it. There's nothing particularly special about it. It's got a very low classification, so it's not exactly a useful loco on your line. I just like the look of it, and I thought it's one of the few that doesn't have a ready-to-run model of it, and I picked it. But I think this one has a lot more that you could do with it, and especially the fact that it's a DMU. And it reminds me, for anybody who's not Googling this and they're driving or anything like that, it reminds me of those American silver caravans that you see around the world, and it does look beautiful. And I mean, the pictures that all popped up are all black and white, which makes it even more elusive and interesting. But I think this one definitely wins in this, and I would love to see a model of it. Would I buy a model if it came out? Probably not, because it's not something that I would use particularly, but I'd love to see a ready-to-run version of it. So I think James win this one easily in my eyes. I don't think you have to really fight much for it, and the fact that it stuck around till BR days is also good.
Yeah. It's a shame that it didn't sort of continue into BR as its current guise. It would have been nice to see how it turned out, in a BR green or whatever. But I think this was the forerunner and sort of the prototype to the diesel rail car, 2-car, 3-car, 4-car units, etc. I think it was like the first proper one that was built, and then sort of led to that evolution that came after the war ended, and BR were looking for cheaper ways to run their branch lines and passenger service, etc. So I think it would be a very nice model. I think it would look absolutely stunning. As I say, it'd be one of those one-off collectors styles, like what the Hush Hush has fallen into, and the Turbo Motive and other various one-off builds. So the way the market goes with wanting these models at the moment, I think it would be quite a good choice. I certainly would buy one. I'd make the excuse that it managed to survive and got onto my heritage line, or even that it's now been mainline fitted, and I probably would run it around the main line on a rail tour. So I'm quite passionate for that, to see that one come, if any manufacturers are happening to be listening. Cool. So that was our bonus round of what would you like to see. As we say, the score is currently 2-2 between me and Sam, and so we move to our final battle. And this is the Anything Goes round, where we can pick anything from the LMS catalogue to battle against each other. So it could be completely unmatched and uneven, with maybe a 3F tender engine going up against a Princess Royal, or we could be quite suitably matched. There's only one way to find out. Sam, what's your choice?
I feel that the fact that I won the coin toss on this has massively helped me. However, I don't think anyone's going to be shocked that one of us is using it. I am coming forward with my final form, fully evolved Stania Black 5. It's such an iconic loco, and they just look gorgeous all the time. So, with a little bit of information. Introduced in 1934, designed by William Stania, a 460 wheel alignment, 842 were built. Described as probably the most successful locomotive of all time, 842 were built, and there was almost nothing they couldn't do. A firm favourite with crews, and they lasted until the end of steam in 1968. They are available in N gauge by Graham Farish, 00 by Hornby, and O gauge by Ellis Clark. James, what you got for me?
Well, I saw that and I thought this is going to be a real struggle to go up against the Black 5. It is an iconic locomotive. It's loved by, I think, any steam fan. I don't think there's many that don't like a Black 5. So I had to think hard about this one. And I think there's only really two contenders that can take on the mighty Black 5, one of them being the Princess Royal. But the one for me, and I'm hoping this might just sway it, is the Princess Coronation class, also known as the Duchess. These were first introduced in 1937. The originals were the streamlined versions for the coronation services introduced by the LMS. They are the 462 Pacific wheel configuration, and eventually 38 of the locomotives were built. Now, these are considered some of the most powerful express passenger locomotives in Britain, and they could pull 17 or more coaches up the steep gradients of Shap Bank. So they were mightily impressive locos for the day. Even now, when you do get the chance to see them in the Duchess of Sutherland, I think she's been out of action for a while, but when I saw her running on the main line, and the fact that we used for the Royal Train, I mean, she was, it's got to say something about this locomotive. Um, they're available by Fashion Engage. TT gauge actually gets to mention with this one for Hornby, as well as the Hornby 00 gauge locomotive. So yeah, this was the best contender I thought I could put up against a Black Five, and I'm not convinced it's going to win, even though looks wise, I think it's got to be described as the far more attractive locomotive. But yeah, I mean, it's a Black Five, isn't it?
I'm gonna come in quick with a quick jab at the coronation class to try and secure my victory early. So, looking at a picture of the Black Five and looking at a picture of the coronation class, I can assure you that the first thing that comes into my mind when I look at a coronation class with the smoke deflectors in place is of a Georgian painting of some sort of Georgian era royalty with those horrific wigs that they used to wear. And the smoke deflectors on this one. Now, smoke deflectors on a lot of locomotives look quite fancy, but this one to me, unfortunately, looks like a barrister wig. So I'm going to throw slander upon the coronation class in hopes that it secures an early victory.
I never seen that until you said that, and I have picked up the book that I've done for my research for this, and because it was on the page for the coronation and the Duchess, and looked at the photo, and I saw it straight away. Yeah, yeah, I can see that now you say that.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sam Beecher Jones here, ruining Steam for everyone for at
Yeah.
least 10 episodes now. Or is it
Yeah.
9? 9.
No wonder the listing figures have gone down. All the Steam people have just walked away, and as are the majority of the model railway market, we're really not helping ourselves.
Yeah, sorry.
Um, yeah, it's that is a bit of a jab at it, but I still stand my ground that I think they are an absolutely gorgeous looking locomotive. Personally, it's everyone always goes about the Flying Scotsman and that it's a great loco, and I never saw the appeal of the Flying Scotsman, especially when you compare it to a Duchess. I always thought, between the A3 and the Coronation class, I was like, they're so much better looking, and the fact that they are more powerful, and I think there have been attempts to get a speed record. I think 114 miles an hour might have been the top speed that a Coronation achieved, and that's an impressive speed because if you think about it, the West Coast main line is a lot curvier than what the East Coast main line is. The East Coast does have those wonderful straights where obviously Mallard managed to reach 126 mile an hour. And I think if we wanted a fair comparison of locomotive, I think if you put a Coronation on there, I think you'd have a good chance of nipping that in the bud. But yeah, it's to me, I think they look absolutely stunning. And I think streamlined or not streamlined, I just think they're such beautiful looking locomotives. But that said, it's a Black Five. It's
You did come up against possibly, I believe, the hardest. And I'm going to say an early thing here. I wouldn't be surprised if the Black Five appears in the semi-finals versus all of the Big Four. I'm going to make a bold statement and say that I wouldn't be surprised if the Black Five, if we put this out to a vote, Black Five could make it could become the Super Bowl winner in this. I am going to sing some of the praises on the Coronation class. It did actually hold the speed record for about a year before the Mallard took it away from it. However, whilst it is considered one of the most powerful locomotives, when it went to a speed test in, I believe it was 1948, it fell short and actually didn't live up to the initial power that they had. They didn't hold as much of that sort of by 1948. I'm trying to make sure I've got all my information correct. But it is a truly beautiful loco, and I do think it stands up. But I'm going to say, we're talking about, you've got what I would consider to be a really good saw. This, you want to cut through a tree, you've got it. but you're comparing it to the Swiss Army knife of the railway world. And the fact that it can do anything you want it to, I think that's what makes the Black 5 the overall winner in this. And the coronation is beautiful. Despite my jab at it to try and win, it is a beautiful loco. But I just don't think it matches up to the Swiss Army knife of the railway world.
No. The other advantage of the Black 5 is obviously it's a versatile loco and it's sort of a go anywhere loco. And it and apart from the Jubilee, it sticks to your theme of engines that made it to the Southern, because obviously the Black 5 was also used on the Somerset and Dorset, so made it as far as Bournemouth West. They are absolutely great locos. There's a lot of nostalgia, a lot of love for them, and obviously it's the basis for Henry the Green engine as well. So you'll get a lot of Thomas love there. Your analogy was quite good, because obviously I was saying that this is sort of Pokemon style, and I was going to say you've pretty much gone for. I'm I know there's a lot more Pokemon. I'm just 150 whatever it was the originals. You've gone for a Mewtwo, and I've just got Pikachu. It's it was never going to win.
Let's put it this way. If you won the coin flip, would you have still picked the coronation class for this category?
If I'd done the coin flip, I think I would have kept the Black 5 for the anything goes and put the coronation class in instead of the Royal Scot for the express passenger.
Mm-hmm. I think that cements my final gambit in this case.
Yep, I think that one goes to you. The Black 5 is the winner in this contest, and that's a 3-2 victory to you.
Thank you very much. Bow down before me, Steam heads. Bow down before me. Please don't. I'm really sorry. I do like Steam. James and I have said this off it. I do like Steam. It's just that I have to be very particular about what I like with Steam. So this was a really fun discussion. I really enjoyed this, and I think by you picking LMS as the first one, I think this was a really good one to start with, because it's an area where, until we started researching what we wanted to do, I think it made me feel that actually there's more of the LMS that I like. I just didn't know the names of them, or I didn't know that they were the basis for a lot of my favorite, like sort of BR era Steam locos. Yeah. So really, really solid choice by starting with the LMS. I really like this style of cat fight, Pokemon battle, however you want to.
The Pokemon battle, I think I've quite enjoyed it too. And as you say, I think by going for LMS, because obviously in previous podcasts, my influence is definitely Western Region Diesel. Your influence is Southern Region Electric. This was something that we were not so a fay in. I know there's a little bit of Somerset and Dorset now, and I really do love the Somerset and Dorset, so I sort of had that trump card there. But yeah, I've enjoyed this, and as Sam says, the intention now is that we will continue with theme of Steam just for this one. We will probably do diesel and electric and that over time. But for now, we intend to do further battles, including the GWR, the LNER, Southern and BR Standard. Sam, as you are the winner, I will let you pick the next category. So which grouping will you go for the next battle?
The next battle, I'm going to say, let's go Southern. Let's go. Let's get the home field advantage. I'm going Southern.
Going Southern. Excellent stuff. So, yes, the next time we do this, it will be the Southern top 5 battle. And we intend to get the winners from each one and then put them together in a final battle of 5. To do that, we're going to need your help. So we're going to ask you to go to our Instagram account, and on there will be the 5 locomotive winners from today. We want you to pick the regional champion that you want to put up against the other categories. So it could be the tank engine, which was the Ginty. It could be the Fairburn tank, which was our mixed traffic winner. It could be our freight winner of the Somerset and Dorset 7F. We could have the Jubilee for the express passenger class, or you can go for the all-rounder, the Black 5. It's up to you to decide who you want to put against the other locomotives. So please come to our Instagram page, have a vote, and then we will see who will reign Steam Model Champion for the Model Rail Replacement Podcast.
This world we live in is a wondrous and fascinating place. We stand on the brink of greatness and a chance to make a real difference in this world. 2 people who are not making a difference in the world are James and Sam. So great are their egos that you can now support them on Patreon from $5 per month to just show your support. You too can watch the model railway world burn under their narcissistic natures. Head on over patreon.com/Model Rail Replacement Podcast.
Okay, we are back, and I am defeated in that round. But to be honest, when you get up against a Black Five, there isn't much that's going to beat it. I don't think, but we can find out in the future, as I say, when we have our regional battles after we've done our local battles, shall we say. So next time will be Southern. That'll be in a few weeks' time. So I'm going to have to put my thinking cap on and think of locomotives. But while we're here, I suppose we should do a coin toss and decide who goes first.
So in this day and age, James, it turns out that neither of us have a coin on us. However, Google has provided me with the Flip a Coin generator on their website. So for the audio listeners of the podcast, whilst I'm doing this section, I also have my phone recording the screen, so I can't cheat. So the audio from this will match up with the episode, so people can see I can't cheat. So I currently have the coin flip generator provided by Google. And James, just to confirm one more time, what is it you're picking, heads or tails?
I'm going to go with heads.
Okay, James has said heads in my headphones. So, and it's heads. James.
Ah, yes.
Okay, so that means that for our next episode, James will be picking first. I'm at a severe disadvantage on this one.
I've got my list. I think my list has just appeared in my head already, knowing that I don't have to worry about what I could come up against. I think this one could be a nice little victory for me, I reckon. So, yeah, I look forward to it.
I'm so scared now.
Hopefully everyone else who's been listening has enjoyed this. As I say, we really have enjoyed this. This has been quite fun, and you know it's been quite exhilarating. I felt doing it, and hopefully that comes across when people listen. We you know, if you wanna you know, give me some support, just come and send a few messages to Western Signalman or whatever. And obviously, if you want to give Sam a port, go off to Emperor's Path and you know, make a few suggestions that way. We can get everyone involved.
I think it's worth saying we're going to create a hashtag now, and it's going to be Team EP or Team WS. You can show your support for whichever one of us you want to back in this round, in this fight.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, if you've got models of Southern engines that you think should be considered for the battle, take a photo of it, stick it on Instagram, put that hashtag behind it for whichever team you are backing, and you never know, you may get a mention in that episode. Yeah, so that will be our battle in the future. But before that, we were going to have a few more interviews and a few more discussions. But as we always do at the end of the show, we like to do our social media shout outs. This week, then, Sam, what have you got for us?
I've mentioned their videos in the past, and I specifically mentioned it as being one of the greatest inspirational videos for my weathering on my particular stock. But I never actually gave them a shout out in that episode. And a couple of people have messaged me asking about the YouTube channel and the video and stuff like that. So it's given me a resurgence of wanting to share their channel. Now, I am sorry if I butcher this. I will spell it, but I'm going to say it how I think it's pronounced. Soy Bacao. Soy Bacao, which is spelled SOI space BUAKHAO. That is the name of their channel. They have lots and lots of train spotting videos from the late 80s all the way up until modern day. They have some bus stuff on there as well. But when I first found it, I thought it was just a lot of Southern region stuff. But even videos that they've uploaded, they've got some fantastic stuff where you can see Southern style electric units like the 4VEP, but in an overhead capacity, and it looks weird. So if you want to see it, you can watch. There's so many train spotting videos on there. Just have to have a look through. You can search Waterloo, you can search Basingstoke, you can search for a particular type of loco, and they're all on there. As I say, that Portsmouth and Southsea video I recommended in my interview episode comes from this particular channel, and it is a fantastic resource if you're looking for weathering or just sheer trains that run in particular areas and the locos, coaches and stuff that they may carry. So worth a look. James, what have you got for us today?
Well, And that sounds really good, actually. I do like the sound of that channel. I want to say, when you've mentioned that video before, with the Class 50 and the 73s and that on the rail tour, I remember watching that one myself. So yeah, having seen that channel, that does sound like an excellent recommendation. Mine is something which I think is absolutely criminal, that this channel only has 942 subscribers. So please do go find it and make yourself, a follower of this channel. This is Stafford Station Engage, which, as the title suggests, is an Engage layout based on Stafford Station. And the modelling in this is absolutely superb. There is builds of like Tesco supermarket, various repaints of lorries and stuff like that. It does a lot of 3D printing, uses Google Earth to map out how he's going to build his layout and builds it representative and as close to real life as he can. And I've been following the channel. I think I found it a few weeks ago. It's modern era. It's right up to today's date. But yeah, it's absolutely brilliant channel, I think, an absolutely stunning looking layout, and definitely deserves far more subscribers than it's currently got. So yeah, Stafford Station Engage is my recommendation of the week. That's YouTube, by the way. I don't think I've mentioned that.
I have just found it on YouTube, and it looks very good. So I've subscribed. I'm going to give it a watch. And if you do go and view any of these channels that James and I recommend, please make sure you say in the leave a comment for them and say that you were sent over by either myself, James, or the Model Rail Replacement Podcast.
I think it helps build that sense of community between us all that we try to promote through the podcast. As people would know from episode 2, was a very important subject for us, that to be united as modelers, and look after and support each other. So yeah, I think it's always nice for people to know where that recommendation came from, just so that we are aware that we are looking out for each other. I think that ties us up quite nicely for the end of the show. It's been quite an enjoyable one. I mean, I've certainly enjoyed it, even if I didn't win. But it's
it was far more interesting and in depth than I thought it was going to be. I didn't think it was going to be boring, but I got really competitive, which I'm sure you can hear. But it was really fun to record, and even with starting on an area that is not somewhere I am aware of, I'm not clued up on, and I still got really into it, and it was really fun. So I hope that mine and James's discussions and trying to win each other over and trying to make the other person concede was fun for you all to listen to. And I hope you played along at home as well on which loco you think could have been in each category as well.
As I say, find our Instagram accounts and let us know your thoughts. Obviously, we are going to open up a poll and ask you, what did the right loco win? So keep an eye out for that on the Model Rail Replacement Podcast. We'll do each category, probably do one each day. So today, if you go and look on there, there should be a poll for the tank engine. Was the right tank engine selected? And then, comment if you think that we've completely missed a perfect example of a tank engine and something you think should have deserved to have been entered into the challenge. But remember, it has to be a locomotive that is available in model form. And then, we'll also be polling you eventually for what you think should be the contender for regional champion. But we will do that once we have all our finalists. So we'll get through the various areas and regions and then do the ultimate battle at the end. So look out for that as well.
Fantastic. And talking about social medias, James, if people want to get hold of you or find you, what's the best way to do so?
Well, if you do want to break from the Model Rail Replacement Podcast, I am available on Instagram as Western Signalman. If you want to have a look at my layout builds, I don't think I've got a video up recently, but one will be coming shortly because I've, as I say, made a bit of progress on the layout. You can find me as the Western Signalman on YouTube. Contact me as westernsignalman@outlook.com if you so wish to send me an email. Alternatively, if you wish to send both of us an email, it's Model Rail RP, that's Romeo Papa, @outlook.com. Sam, if they want to find you, where do they find you?
Best way to get hold of me is Instagram @emperors_path, on YouTube, Emperor's Path, or alternatively, you can get hold of me on Facebook, Emperor's Path.
I think that wraps the show up nicely for the day. Congratulations, Sam, on winning this battle of the steam locomotives. I do find it interesting when we eventually get to diesels, how we'll do that, because we have very similar choices. But but we got the steam in get through first.
I think the hardest one is going to be Great Western. Whilst I am a Southern boy, I am a Great Western fan in majority, and you being a Western boy as well, I think that's going to be the difficult one. So I mean, if you were looking for one to do as the final event, I feel like the Great Western should surely be that one.
Yeah, I think that could be quite an interesting one. That's definitely going to be a coin flip decider. I think whoever wins that is probably going to win the round, but we shall see in the future. Meanwhile, we shall just say to you that hopefully we've been entertaining, informative, and have replaced your model railway, if only just for a little bit. I'm James, and with me has been Sam, and we say good night.
This service terminates here. Please ensure you take all of your personal belongings with you.